Have you ever heard of an ox who preferred to die waiting for his master than to live without him? It seems like an invented story, the kind that we hear and doubt. But this is not a fable, nor a farm tale. It's a real story, one of those that hurts the heart and makes us reflect on how far loyalty goes and how far human ingratitude can reach. In a world where abandonment has become common, where those who love too much are almost always left aside, this story carries a raw and painful truth. Love is not always reciprocal, and sometimes loyalty is punished with silence and contempt. This is the story of an ox, a simple animal without a voice, but which carried a pure and deep feeling in its chest. He didn't talk, he didn't complain, he didn't demand, just waited every day in the same place with our eyes fixed on the horizon. He waited for someone who had promised to never abandon him, someone he considered more than an owner. He was a friend, a life companion, your boss. But what drives an animal to such a sacrifice? Why would a being who could go on with his life choose to stand still, day after day, refusing food, ignoring time, just to keep alive the hope of seeing that face again? What makes an animal so loyal, even in the face of pain? This is a question that echoes in many sad stories, but in this one, the answer seems even crueler. Because this ox's pain was not caused just by longing. It was by the unexplained absence, by the lack of a last look, a last touch. It was because of the ingratitude of someone he once loved. The boss, that man he followed with devotion, who walked beside him on sunny and rainy days, simply disappeared. It disappeared from the animal's life as if it had never existed. And the ox, who only knew the language of fidelity, didn't understand. How could I understand? He didn't know what treason was. I only knew how to love, and so he stayed, firm, stopped, in the same corner of the farm, facing the entrance as if waiting for time to go back, like someone who believes that perhaps the boss was just late. 1 day, 2, 3, without feeding, without moving, just waiting, as if his very existence depended on that reunion. How many days have passed? How many cold nights did he face alone, without emotional shelter, with only the memory of the one who promised to take care of him until the end? Nobody knows for sure. What is known is that time passed. The ox's body became weak, its eyes became deeper and deeper, but the heart remained there, trapped in a hope that only the loyal know. This story is not about any animal. It's about sacrifice. It's about the silent pain of those who love too much. It's about the brutality of ingratitude. And most importantly, it's about us. Because at some point in our lives, we have all been either the ox or the boss. But is there still time to understand what really happened? Was this ox really abandoned? Or is there something behind this absence that no one has told? His name was Bilu. A simple, almost childish name for a creature whose loyalty touched the hearts of those who witnessed his routine on the farm at dawn. Bilu was an ox of imposing size, shiny bay coat under the morning sun, curved horns as if wearing a silent crown. In the first few years, he grazed peacefully, always alongside the other animals. But there was something different in his eyes. A sincere attention that he directed towards the dirt castle where his master lived. With each step his owner took towards the corral, Bilu raised his head, looked steady, and wagged his tail in a rhythm that seemed to embrace the wind. He was a calm, obedient, but at the same time curious ox, always attentive to the sound of his master's boots echoing across the dry earth floor, always receiving a brief pat on the back, a good morning Bilu, that sounded like music to his bovine ears. The boss was called João Veloso, a man of few words, a face weathered by the sun and hands as strong as tree trunks that carried nets, lassos, and farm utensils for decades. João had a heart that many said was soft. He was generous to his employees. For animals, even more so. He spoke little to other men, but whenever he walked to the pasture, and saw Bilou, he would stop, put his hand on that ox's back and say, "We're going well today, partner." That phrase echoed not only at the time, but in the following days. Because Bilou, little by little, learned that João was more than a boss. He represented security. It was the one who fed him, the one who always passed through the gate at dawn, calling, "Bilou, come here." And Bilou came, stretching his neck, sniffing the air, still covered in dew and the promise of affection. The bond between them was unique. While the other oxen walked lazily on the grass, Bilou was guided by the projected shadow of the human figure that came to open the gates, that came to check the fences, that came to feed the animals. And João, in turn, was happy with the sparkle in Bilou's eyes, that look that said, "You are here, I trust you." On long afternoons, when the sun seemed to merge the sky with the earth, João sat at the foot of an ancient tree, and Bilou approached, resting his head on the man's knee. It was no ordinary farm scene for those who could not see beyond appearances. It was an alliance of souls, of flesh and blood, of man and ox, marked by simple gestures that spoke louder than erudite words, and that turned into a ritual. Every day, without fail, João would stop by the corral, look Bilou in the eyes, adjust the seal on his bridle, say something quietly. Perhaps a repeated phrase, perhaps a silent superlative. Bilou's memory camera recorded every gesture, every step, every look. For him, that man was the entire universe. The celebration of the pasture, the breath of the wind that announced the end of the day, the touch that cured tiredness after pulling the plow or resting under the shade. And for João, Bilou was more than a four-legged employee. He was company, he was a silent witness to sunrises, plantings, harvests, promises made and fulfilled. But like all real-life stories that involve sacrifice, abandonment and ingratitude, pure love and firm loyalty do not always find fertile ground to flourish until the end. João, over time, needed to move away, perhaps due to illness, perhaps due to a change of plans, perhaps due to circumstances beyond our imagination. And that ox, which always followed in the man's footsteps, didn't notice that the direction was changing, because for him, João's steps were his compass. And when João didn't come anymore, Bilou waited. He waited with the same look, the same patience that accompanied him during the days of partnership. He waited in the morning, he waited at noon, he waited at dusk. The pasture became larger, the smell of the food became faint, but the fixed presence in waiting did not change. And there, in that time of silence, where the routine was broken, the ox remained faithful to the man he loved. Now, if you are wondering, what exactly happened from that moment on? Or why didn't Bilou move on? Why didn't João come back? I invite you to comment below. Write loyalty if you believe that even an animal can love, or write hope if you think that even in abandonment, faith remains. Your opinion will be part of the story we are about to unravel together. In the next moment, we will delve into the context of the farm, the broken routines, and the separation scene, the cruelest part of this bond. Bilou and João's story isn't over yet. The farm was old, built of stone and wood and history, each board creaking as if whispering memories of days that had come and gone. The dirt floor at the entrance to the main house bore the marks of boots, cartwheels, and the feet of oxen that came to drink at the edge of the corral. There, the pasture stretched beyond sight, swaying in the midday sun and hugging the horizon in the evening. The fences, some weakened by time, still guarded the space where the ox lived its routine, waking up to the rooster's crow, grazing until sweat appeared on its coat, resting in the shade of a ravine or an old engazero, waiting for the sound of the boss's footsteps. This was the living environment of that ox called Bilou, an environment that might seem common, but that for him meant home, the world, everything. Year after year, this routine was repeated with such normality that it seemed eternal. Bilu saw the dawn brought by his boss, João Veloso, who opened the gate with a metallic sound and called the ox by that simple name, Bilu. And Bilu responded with firm steps, wagging his tail to the corral where coffee and bread awaited him, or the sniff of yellow food brought by the hand he knew well. He grazed, felt the wind on his face, followed the cattle, but he was always attentive to his boss. In the afternoon, when the sun lost a little strength, João would come to him, perhaps not for anything extraordinary, perhaps just to rub his back, to whisper something that only Bilu heard. At night, the lights on the farm would come on, and the ox would see the figure of João walking to the corral one last time, checking that all the animals were okay, but always stopping at Bilu, exchanging that look that didn't need words. This day-to-day coexistence generated bonds that no one can measure, but that everyone notices: the silent loyalty of the ox, the constant presence of the boss. It was genuine, everyday, simple affection, and therefore profound. There were no big speeches or promises of loyalty. There were gestures, a forgotten hat in the grass that João left next to the pen for Bilu to lean on when he was tired. A quick pat on the back, a good job, Bilu, whispered in the ears of those who knew how to listen to the sound of the soul. A patch of shade reserved for the most faithful animal when everyone else sought shelter. The feeling was that the farm revolved around Bilu and João, not as master and servant, but as journey companions, living that time with silent intensity. And that time passed. The harvests, the droughts, the rains, the golden mornings, the red sunsets. João aged a little. His hair became grayer, his face more lined, his hands trembled more. But whenever he came to the corral, he saw the same brightness in Bilu, the same hope. The ox perhaps didn't realize that his muscles were becoming less firm, that his master's step was becoming slower, that the bond between them could be physically degrading. Or perhaps he did notice with his body and soul, and that's why he redoubled that presence, that look, that waiting. Who has never felt like time was passing too quickly? Bilu did not speak, but his silence spoke. Faith, patience, persistence. Then came the broken days, the days when João didn't show up at the corral in the morning. The wind seemed colder, the earth harder, the pasture drier. Bilu waited. He waited with the same commitment as always, with the conviction that his boss would return. He kept his favorite place, facing the main gate of the farm where João had always appeared. He followed the routine, although the man's footsteps did not come. At every quiet time of the afternoon, he would get up, stamp his hooves on the ground, look in the direction of the path that João was entering, and wag his tail as if asking, "Are you coming?" But none of those boots, none of that shadow he knew. Emptiness settled in, and in it the pain of someone who loves without an answer. And within this context, of routine transformed into waiting, of a scenario of care transformed into absence, the story acquires a weight that touches deeply. The farm went from being a place of social interaction to being a witness to abandonment. The ox that will only know millions of pastures, but that only waited for one man. The relationship built with so much care, so many mornings, so many "Good morning, Bilu," so many hands on the ripe loin, remained alive in the animal's heart, even when it became invisible to the boss. That's when we ask ourselves, did the boss know about that animal's pain? Did he understand the depth of the bond he had built? And more, did he really care? If you're seeing this, comment company if you believe that actions are worth more than words, or fidelity if you think that was Bilu's hallmark. In the next section, we will go into the moment of separation, the time when the bond was broken and what this meant for the ox's life. The day dawned like so many others, the shy sun breaking through the clouds and casting long shadows on the farmland that seemed to hold ancient secrets. However, there was something different in the air, A heavy silence crept in between the usual noises of hooves, birds, and the boss's steady footsteps. Bilou felt it first. He had learned to understand the world with the patience and fidelity that only a waiting heart can have. He noticed when João Veloso's boots didn't echo in the corral on the morning they were supposed to. The old good morning Bilou didn't arrive. The gate remained closed. The routine that guaranteed so many dawns together was suddenly interrupted. João, who previously crossed the pasture with the stick to mark the land as if to affirm his presence, that day simply did not appear. The farm seemed to know something had changed. The aroma of the coffee that usually steamed inside the main house remained suspended in time. João's shadow on the porch did not form, and Bilou, standing at the edge of the enclosure, raised his head as if questioning the void. "Where are you?" He looked at the gate. He looked at the trail that João was walking. He did this more than once. The sun rose in the sky, warming Bilou's large, calm body, but the ox remained motionless. The sounds of other animals, the rustling of the grass, the blowing of the wind, it was all there, but something vital came out. The boss, the presence, the bond that sustained that routine is gone. And Bilou's reaction? It was slow, painful, and full of loyalty. He did not flee. He did not shake in despair. He just waited, staying exactly where João always found him. He remained faithful to those routine marks, next to the corral, facing the gate, in the shadow that the old Ingazero cast. He looked at each step that failed to appear. The smell of the food arrived later, or perhaps not at all. The hand on the back didn't come. The "we're going well today, partner" was not said, and Bilou continued there because he knew deep down that waiting was part of what he swore, in some way, a silent promise made with the sighs of the soul. The days transformed. The pasture has lost some of its green, the earth felt harder. Human closeness has become distant. Bilou, who had so often guided the other animals, now found himself alone. He would get up to graze, but soon return to the same place, the farm gate. He chewed the grass like someone carrying out a ritual, not like someone eating with enthusiasm. He lay in the shade, and in the silence his breathing seemed to hear each second of waiting. The body, once strong, began to give in to wear and tear. The hooves beat less vigorously on the ground. The eyes, always alert to the sound of João, began to watch the horizon in search of something that was not arriving. And then, at the beginning of the lonely wait, the farm became a scene of abandonment. Not in the dramatic sense of big events, but in the silence that covers everything when someone important leaves. Bilou continued the routine of calling with his eyes, wagging his tail as if asking, "Are you coming?" The trail became empty. The voice became an echo within the memory. He didn't understand explanations, nor did he have anywhere to look for a reason. He just felt that the bond that united two beings had been broken. The boss, who promised company, attention, protection, didn't show up, and the ox that gave its life for that man waited. I was hoping for a reunion that seemed increasingly distant. It is at this point that the story takes a silent turn, a sudden cut between before and after. The separation did not come like a storm, but like a breeze that moved away, leaving an icy trail. The pain of abandonment is not loud and dramatic. It is light, continuous, persistent, like the breath of someone waiting for a return that never comes. And Bilou's loyalty, this silent sacrifice, becomes an open wound in the guts of those who watch. Because if a simple ox can wait until its last breath for those who loved it, what are we, human beings, doing with our bonds, with our gratitude, with our soul commitments? If you're feeling this story in your chest, type "sacrifice" in the comments. If you believe that loyalty is more than a word, write "loyalty." And stay with me, because in the next step, we will see what happened next, how Bilou's wait was prolonged, and what this abandonment generated in depth. Bilou remained firm in the same place, as if planted there by an invisible promise. He didn't get up like before. He didn't walk with the same vigor, but he remained there, facing the farm gate, where the boots of his boss once appeared, that man who represented the entire world to him. The pasture was still around, the fences still delimited the place, the wind blew between the thistles, and the sun set on the horizon with the same brightness as before, but for him nothing was the same. The routine that once involved their footsteps, the sound of hooves on the ground, the distant noise of tools and human voices. All of this was now the consequence of an absent presence. He waited, and that word seems simple, but it carries the weight of a mountain when the bond that supported the weight is broken. In the first days of his absence, Bilou still maintained fragments of his routine. He was grazing, yes, but with the eyes of someone checking every moment to see if the boss would appear. He lay down in the shade of the old ingazero, but before eating, he got up, wagged his tail, looked at the path used by Juan Veloso, or would have used it, as if asking the horizon, "Are you coming?" And when he didn't come, he returned to his original place, fixed his gaze on the gate, and deepened the silence with his patient presence. As the days went by, the soil beneath their hooves bore fewer flowers, more parched earth, and the green of the pasture seemed less vibrant. The human presence became a memory, a sound he expected to hear, a shadow he expected to see, a touch on his back that never happened. And then the refusal began, slow, almost imperceptible at first, but blossoming in silence. He left the hay aside, chewed little, walked less. The ox that had jumped to meet its boss now waited motionless. When the high sun burned the grass and all the other animals went to drink water, Bilou would stand still, leaning against the fence, head lowered or raised towards the trail. He seemed to carry an immense loneliness, a loneliness that is not just the absence of company, but the absence of meaning, of reference, of "here he comes." The boss was his compass, and without him, the world became a directionless map. The large, imposing body began to show signs of wear. The coat lost its shine, its muscles, its firmness. The hooves were slow to rise. The strength that once defined him seemed to weaken from within, replaced by a tiredness that was not natural to work. It was a reflection of waiting. In the shadow of a sky that continued to open every day, Bilou waited, day after day. The morning light brought him the breath of maybe today, but the rooster's crow and the sunrise didn't bring the boots or the voice. He stayed. Although many animals had already taken other paths or dispersed, he did not move. He remained because for him that was what time was, the entrance through which John appeared, the sign that everything continued. And when the signal failed, he didn't understand that the world had changed. He just remained in silence, in pain, in misunderstood loyalty. Loneliness became his choiceless companion. Sadness, your daily food, the void, your common landscape. And then came the end, or rather, the climax of the wait. On a warm afternoon, when the sun seemed to be losing the war against the twilight, Bilou raised his head for the last time. He stared at the path that led to his boss's house. His eyes were lost on the horizon, and for an instant all the past came together in a second. The shared sunrises, the touch on the loin, the good morning partner, the boots, the sound of the voice, the affection. He took a deep breath, breathed in all the breath he had left, and then let out his last breath. He exhaled in the silence, as if leaving at that moment all the waiting, all the pain, all the fidelity he had kept. His head fell gently, his eyes still fixed on that direction from which the boss always came. He rested there, but not before nailing every fiber in that direction. I waited for you. And in that last breath, Bilou made his loyalty speak for him, that his life revealed the deep meaning of loving without receiving, of waiting without return, of being firm when the world becomes uncertain. If you've been watching this far and feel the weight of this story, write truth in the comments. If you think loyalty requires reciprocity, comment reciprocity. Tell me what this awakens in you, because it is precisely in this pain that reflection is born. And get ready, because in the next moment we'll uncover how the people reacted, how the farm turned out, and Bilu's silent legacy, and you'll want to keep going until then. The farm was silent after Bilu's last breath, a silence that was not just the absence of sounds, but the presence of emptiness, a silence that echoed among the trees, among the sheds, among the fields, as if the soul of that place had been taken along with the last breath of that ox that taught with its entire life the real meaning of the word fidelity. Some employees noticed his absence, saw that he was no longer getting up, but no one could explain in words what had happened there. How can we explain that an animal chose to die waiting? How to describe the greatness of a love that resisted absence, hunger, pain, and time? The days passed. Nature took its course. But at the entrance to the corral, where Bilu stayed for the last time, the ground seemed harder, as if it had absorbed more than the weight of a body. It seemed to have absorbed a feeling, a story, a legacy. The people who knew what happened told the story almost in whispers, as if they respected something sacred. They said he died looking at the trail where his boss always appeared. And that phrase became a memory in the mouths of everyone who knew that ox. But what many may not realize is that Bilu did not die out of weakness. He died for love. And therein lies the reflection that this story needs to provoke in us. Because honestly, if even an ox can teach us about unconditional love, what are we doing with our bonds? Have we been loyal to those who deserve our loyalty? Have we been waiting for those who love us in the same way we wait for something we know is worth it? Or are we often like John, absent, missing, forgotten, leaving behind hearts that loved us without asking for anything in return? Bilu's pain was silent, but deeply symbolic. He didn't scream, he didn't rebel, he didn't look for someone to blame. He just stayed, with his head up, with his eyes fixed, with his entire soul given over to the hope that at some point, the one he loved most would return. But the return did not come. And yet, he didn't leave. He preferred to die faithful to his memory, rather than live without its presence. And this, as much as it hurts us, needs to be understood not just as a tragedy, but as a lesson. Because deep down, we are all a little like Bilu at some point in our lives. We've all waited for someone. We have already placed ourselves in front of a gate, real or symbolic, believing that something or someone would return. We all already believed strongly, even when everything indicated that there was no longer a chance. And some of us, perhaps, have been like John too. Too busy, too hurt, too lost to realize that someone was waiting, that there was a heart beating on the other side, that there was loyalty being cultivated even in abandonment. And perhaps that is the greatest pain, realizing too late that someone was there, firm, loyal, constant. But let Bilu's story serve to awaken us. May it enter through the door of the soul and make us reflect on the type of love we are cultivating, the type of presence we are offering, the gratitude we are showing, the loyalty we are repaying. Because love is not just a feeling, it is an attitude, its presence, its permanence. And the story of this ox shows us that even those who don't speak can teach with their lives what many of us are still trying to understand. What true love is, what respect is, what surrender without conditions is. And if you've made it this far, I want to extend a sincere invitation to you. Look around you, think about the people, or even the animals who have been there for you. Those that you may not notice, but that are there every day, waiting for affection, a look, recognition. Are you present? Are you giving back? Are you giving the right value to those who never gave up on you? Write the word presence in the comments if you believe that love is being, even in silence. Or write gratitude if this story reminded you of someone who waited for you even when you didn't come back. And if this story really touched you, if it brought out of you a thought, a memory, a feeling, leave a like. This helps me to continue bringing stories like this, which speak more from the heart than from reason, and share with someone who needs to remember what true loyalty is. Because sometimes a sad story is all we need to awaken something that was dormant inside us. And in the end, perhaps that is the greatest purpose of telling all this.